Hi everyone, and welcome to this kind of new video series I'm starting or experimenting with at the moment, where I'm going to sort of teach you how to revise or mind map key texts in literature through mind mapping. So we're going to start today with one of the key things in themes of Macbeth, ambition, which of course I've done a revision video for before. And we're going to mind map this one because I think it's quite a good one to start with. And I'm going to kind of show you how we might go about kind of making a simple graphic revision map to help us remember quotes and analyse kind of key parts of the play. So first things first, use a simple visual reference for the theme that you're referencing. So I'm going to go for a crown for ambition. Let's put the play name in as well, Ambition in Macbeth. And maybe it'd be quite fun to draw Macbeth's head here as well, because he's sort of looking at the crown. So should we draw him in there? Draw Macbeth with the beard. Remember, the idea is not to draw kind of really beautifully, but just kind of give a simple picture reference for what you're trying to get across. And that does actually aid the memory, which is why I think mind mapping is such a good technique for English revision, but other subjects as well. So we're going to start there, and the aim is to kind of work our way around, mapping out the kind of key moments in the play that we want to reference, quotations and linked techniques as well, or literary devices. So I've started by drawing the crown in the middle, and then we're just going to reference some key moments. I've sort of planned out beforehand the key quotes I want to look at. So we'll start here kind of 12 o'clock, and of course with the witches' kind of prophecies. Now I like to just draw the witches' hats, because I'm lazy and I don't draw the whole thing when I'm mind mapping, just simple witches' hats. And let's focus on the kind of key prophecy that they give Macbeth, which is of course, all hail Macbeth. So they sort of offer him kind of praise as if he's already king. That shalt be king. Of course the actual quote ends in hereafter. But I don't really think we need to add that in, so I'm just going to Macbeth that shall be king. So I've got my key quote in. I'm not going to underline it or anything. I'm just going to focus on the key language. And I like to sort of go for techniques-wise, looking at this as an inciting incident, which is a structural technique, meaning like kind of the moment in the play that kind of kicks off the action. I could use an underline, sort of squiggly underline there to sort of show that it's a technique that's being used. This begins the Macbeth's ambitious thought might be a nice way to look at it. And of course it's a prophecy, and I might put kind of key links as well. We might put here fate. Is it fate that Macbeth becomes king, or is it his own choice? Might be an interesting thing to evaluate if I was writing an essay on it. And it begins Macbeth's ambitious thoughts for the crown. It's almost like the trigger moment. So I might use like a lighting bulb as well, because it's quite nice to reference this kind of key moment of starting off. So that's a kind of starting point. And of course I'm going to reference later in the very same scene, a little arrow there to reference that, we've got Macbeth kind of wondering about what happened. So I'm just going to quickly draw Macbeth's head. Let's have him sort of thinking, a little beard there, thinking, question mark if you don't draw it well, there we go. That shows he's having a think about it. And what does he say? Act 1, Scene 3 later on. He says, chance may crown me. Oh, I've been using capitals, haven't I? Let's do that. Let's try and keep consistent. Chance may crown me. Without my stir. And the reason I like this quote is it kind of shows he is ambitious. Stir means to take action. And we could of course reference this idea of chance. Why not draw some dice roll? Like he's going to roll the dice if you like. He's going to wait and see if it happens without him doing anything. So he's interested, so we could say his ambitions have limits here. So thematically, Shakespeare kind of links to ambition here, but it has limits. He's sort of not willing to take action here. and with those two kind of linked together. So we look at how Macbeth is kind of characterised. I could put a C for character link there. That might remind me. So characterisation of Macbeth as ambitious, but maybe recognising that it's not a good idea to take action at this point. So we're going to move on from there, and of course move down to the kind of next kind of key scene. You can separate off sections if you think you want to kind of link them together. And the next kind of key moment I'm going to pick is Act 1, Scene 4, where Duncan gives Malcolm, just going to do an arrow there to Malcolm. Of course I know the plot, so I've just given myself cues here. Prince of Cumberland. I'm already breaking my own rules, aren't I, with the capitals? I should never start things like this, but yeah, here we go. Prince of Cumberland. And this, of course, makes him next in line. So Macbeth is frustrated here. So Duncan promotes Malcolm rather than Macbeth. He could have promoted Macbeth. And let's look at Macbeth here as kind of firstly showing this idea of frustration at this point. And what he says here is quite illuminating. So, and it's definitely a sort of key quote. So firstly, it's an aside. So I can put that in brackets. And he states that the Prince of Cumberland is a step on which I must fall down. Or else a leap. Always struggle to spell this one. Shakespeare's always trying to keep the syllables in a blank verse for 10 syllables, so he often shortens words. So we've got a leap, which of course means overleap, but I can just simply label this as to jump over. The reason I like this line is you've got this metaphor, this idea of Macbeth recognising, and I do like to draw this one, that he's sort of at the bottom of the step. Above him is Malcolm, Duncan, and then the crown. And in order to get there, he would have to jump over these two. It's implied that he would need to kill never said, but implied. So the idea, step, I must overleap, I've got to get over these steps. So it's sort of implied that you might kill them as part of it, but it's only a thought in his head. So you've got this metaphor of the stairway, so I'm going to put a metaphor here. Remind myself of the kind of key techniques. So Shakespeare using metaphor, squiggly line because it's a technique. The stepper must jump over, and it sort of links to ambition, the rising stairway. I might say the stairway links to climbing or ascending to power. So we see kind of now very strong links to ambition here, that Macbeth wants power. His desire is for power. Is he willing to do anything yet? Well, we can evaluate that later on, but it's a really key moment in the play at that point. Moving forward, so I'm going to line separate that as well. And we're going to go into Act 1, Scene 5. Of course, Lady Macbeth is a very ambitious character. It'd be sad not to sort of reference her. And this scene is particularly important. So the first thing is Macbeth sends her a letter. So I might just quickly draw a letter. Let's draw a quill as well. There we go. So Macbeth writes her a letter. And as she reads it, she finds out about the prophecies, of course. And the first thing she really says, after just being excited about the prophecies, is that Macbeth is too full of the milk you see me just correcting my writing here. Too full of the milk of human kindness. And this is a great quote to look at because you've got this lovely, all this sort of symbolic language, the idea of milk, sort of symbol of symbols you can analyse in literature, symbol of purity and goodness, which is sort of Lady Macbeth saying he's too good, he's too kind, which kind of implies she thinks he's weak. LM thinks M is weak here. So it expresses her as powerful, and her sort of doubt in here. So strong ambition. I might just draw a kind of muscly arm. That's my best attempt at a muscly arm there. A strong ambition. Implied by this scene, through that kind of symbol, or you could say metaphor here, the milk of human kindness. Moving on from that same scene, of course, you have that prayer Lady Macbeth makes to these dark forces. So after she recognises Macbeth may not be strong enough to do it in her own mind, she goes on to ask these kind of evil spirits. So let's draw a kind of satanic. There we go. We've got the horns for Satan, and she asks these spirits of darkness to fill me. The full line is from the crown to the toe, but we can shorten it. Top full of direst cruelty. We've got the superlative adjective direst, the worst kind, and cruelty. So again, she wants to be sort of metaphorically filled with evil. Desires, so it might put her LM, desires to be full of evil. So we could sort of write some adjectives here. Villainous, highly ambitious. There's a kind of analysis of her. And again, I quite like the idea of a characterization here. So put a C for characterization. Villainous and highly ambitious in this scene. We've got this link of the idea of murder and the fact that she believes she can convince him and be his sort of temptress, if you like. Again, there's a kind of character link here to witchcraft, which I'm just going to do a symbol. So the link to the witchcraft, the fact that she prays to these dark spirits for the strength to convince her husband. You'll sort of notice a lot of the quotes relevant for ambition happen really at Act 1, Scene 1, because that's the time the characters are looking forward to what they desire and what they want. So as we move forward to Act 1, Scene 7, we've got Macbeth doubting, and I could put a little comment here, Macbeth's doubt, which is of course relevant to ambition, the fact that he's not ambitious enough to do it on his own. And this is a really famous quote from the play, I have no spur, which I could quickly illustrate. It's a kind of horse equestrian metaphor. A spur is a kind of spike on the inside of a boot, which makes the horse kind of run. And Macbeth says he has no spur to prick the sides of his intent. I've forgotten to capitalise it, so I'm just going to go with it now. So here we've got this idea of Macbeth's will. He has no spur. He cannot force it forward, if you like. And then he says, but only vaulting ambition. So he even references ambition in this line. That's why it's kind of so important. He doesn't have the spur, but only vaulting ambition. So you've got this kind of equestrian metaphor. Could literally write that here. With the spur, his intent is the horse that won't run, and we've got again imagery here, vaulting ambition. suggesting, it's almost personifying his ambition as jumping too high, and I quite like to draw that one as too high. And there's of course the ambition for the crown is too much, and we've got a link to the great chain. I'm just going to put great chain. I mean great chain of being, and you might want to just check that in your revision. But the idea that in Macbeth's time, in medieval times, the kings were thought to be chosen by God. So when Macbeth says his ambition is vaulting, he's really saying, I'm going too far. I'm breaking the rules of nature, which of course is expressed later in the play as well. You can see I'm sort of shifted through. That's Act 1 really taking up a large amount of the space, but I do think that these scenes are key for the theme of ambition. Of course, we won't cover everything in this short video, but we can look at some of the main ones. So moving past Act 1, Scene 7, of course, Lady Macbeth convinces, and we're going to skip that scene, but she convinces M to go through with it. I can sort of reference that there, and she does it through, of course, humiliating him, playing on his masculine. So I might just do his little sign, feminine, masculinity, and I could put femininity there as well. This kind of conflict there. She uses her sort of what is it? You would be so much more the man, and the thing she does there. But I'm not going to reference that because I think I want to move on to another scene. And we're going to move. We're actually going to jump. I'm going to put in here Duncan murdered. So I'm just following through in the plot. Let's just draw him there. Poor old Duncan. Figured dead. Killed by Macbeth with the dagger, of course. And then we're going to move forward to what I think is a really interesting scene, Act 3, Scene 1, where we see sort of two sides here. Firstly, Lady Macbeth comments that naught's had and all's spent, which kind of this expression of what have they gained. So following the murder, both kind of express this sense of dissatisfaction, and I'm going to again list that word. So the dissatisfaction expressed by Lady Macbeth, naught's had, all spent, and this again sort of links to that idea of nothingness that comes up later in the play. The idea that if you're too ambitious, you'll actually gain nothing is kind of one of the key messages of the play. Sort of similar but different. We've got Macbeth in the same scene says, "To be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus." So let's see if I can squeeze this in. To be thus is nothing. And again, him referencing that the crown is not enough if he's not safe. So we got this element of fear and paranoia in terms of the character shift. So a shift could be a key technique here. The character has shifted from ambitious to fear and paranoia. Lady Macbeth sort of dissatisfied, unhappy with her position. So we can see this key idea that ambition actually, if it's too high or vaulting, leads to a dissatisfaction and an unhappy life, which is how Shakespeare kind of moves the play onward at this point. You can see I'm sort of running out of space, so I'm going to shift on to the kind of key elements that move forward. So in the middle, like towards the end of Act 3, we have murder of Banquo. Don't have to detail everything, just reminding yourselves what happens roughly when. So Banquo dies. That's murdered by Macbeth's. Put another dagger there because it's sort of repeated as he's killed by Macbeth's murderers, and of course that's a key moment. And of course, Macduff's family are murdered as well. And again, this is the result of ambition is godless crimes. You know, these what's the result of these behaviours is kind of godlessness and the crimes that are kind of offensive to God. But he murders his sort of best friend, and of course the family, innocent family. I could put in innocent. Arguably Banquo is innocent as well, of course, and it's that sign that Macbeth's ambition has gone too far. Uncontrolled ambition here. The last kind of moment I'm gonna reference here is what I think is kind of so key at the ending of the play, Act 5, Scene 5. Lady Macbeth is dead. A sort of link there to her. The result of her over ambition is actually it's implied she commits suicide. We don't know that for certain, but Lady Macbeth is dead, and then Macbeth's response, which I find really telling: life's but a walking shadow. Brilliant metaphor from Shakespeare. He sort of expresses that life is just a shadow, and we could innovate the metaphor. Give it a squiggly line. Expresses lack of agency. Agency meaning agency is like your choice, which links to fate. Box that off as a kind of key theme as well. So is it Macbeth's ambition has led him to think that he has no power, that he's just a kind of puppet of fate, for example, but also a shadow is really nothing. So again, at the end of the soliloquy that he makes in Act 1, Scene 5, you've got this signifying nothing. Which kind of links with that. It's all kind of one metaphor. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more, and eventually moves forwards. It signifies nothing. So loss of hope, which is expressed through that extended metaphor that life is pointless, and loss of hope and loss of humanity. He's just a shadow of his former self, is sort of your character point. So the change from a kind of, at the start of the play, a kind of warrior to this kind of broken man, sort of just lamenting, this is my life's a shadow, so it means nothing. So Shakespeare kind of critiques this overreaching ambition through kind of the way that Macbeth and Lady Macbeth end. Macbeth, of course, is killed at the end of the play. If I had more space, I might reference that, and that's the result of overreaching ambition. That's where I'm going to stop today. So I'm out of space, and I hope this has proved helpful just to watch how I would kind of plot out or use a kind of a page to annotate or analyse a key theme. You can draw more if you like. You can draw more carefully than I have. I just wanted to sort of give a kind of walkthrough of how to kind of analyse a theme in a mind map using quotes and kind of references to techniques, context, and plot. So I hope you found that helpful. If you have, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave me some comments, let me know how you found the video. If you haven't found it helpful, I might not do some more, but I will if there's audience out there for this, so we could look at some other themes or characters and mind map them along together. So I hope you found that helpful. I'm going to sign off there. Like I said, give me a thumbs up or a follow if you think that this video has been useful. I'm keen to hear some feedback. Thanks everyone. Thanks for listening.